So anyways, hello everyone. My name is Yulia and I'm one of the SheJumps volunteers. I'm located in the Seattle area. Thank you so much for joining today. We're super excited to have you. A lot of really useful info that hopefully you'll walk away with. If you haven't heard about SheJumps before, SheJumps is all about creating more opportunities for women to get into outdoor activities. You know, it's obviously a big part of what we're going to talk about today is getting out in the snow, but we cover other activities as well. If you want to learn more about what kind of events we have coming up, honestly, the easiest way to do that is to go ahead and just look at the SheJumps profile on Eventbrite. One of the events that's actually coming up in a few weeks here is Navigation 101, where one of our team members is going to talk about Gaia GPS. Really good stuff. Go ahead and check it out and hopefully register. And if you ever have any questions, use our website. We have a contact form where you can reach out to us. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Mark and Janelle, who are going to share some awesome tips with you. And yeah, thank you for being here today. And thank you, Mark and Janelle, for doing this for us.
Yeah, our pleasure. Thanks, Julia. All right. Hello, everybody. We'll do some introductions and then talk about gear and really field your questions. So as you have questions come up, put them in the chat box and we'll get to those. What people are doing right now is putting in how many days they've skied in the backcountry ever, so we can kind of get a pulse on experience levels. And then what was the other thing? Questions?
Mm-hmm. Any questions that you
pressing questions
are interested in? Yeah. And we can just give a quick little background. I started backcountry skiing in Colorado. I lived in Ouray. I think I started when I was 11. At that time, I didn't exactly know what I was doing or anything about avalanches. My mom, I guess, was a bit more free range with us. So I learned by doing, and then later got trained to the highest level of Avi, spent about a decade ski mountaineering racing, and then have traveled all over pretty much the world ski mountaineering. And I've skied through a full pregnancy. I have another one in my belly right now, 5 months, so I'll be skiing through this pregnancy as well. And there's ways to make it all happen. And there's ways to get into the backcountry and having a great, enjoyable experience without being in a lot of danger if your risk tolerance is low. And there's ways to push your abilities and push your comfort level.
And I'm Mark Smiley. We've been married for 14 years, is that right? And I got my first backcountry ski set up in order to go on more dates with Janelle, actually. That's when I was like, yep, I'm gonna throw down $1,200, which is, at the time, was about, I don't know, 25% of my net worth. And just kind of go for it. I'm a IFMGA mountain guide. That's an international certification for backcountry skiing, rock climbing, and mountaineering. And I take people all around the world, climbing and skiing and whatnot. Spent a lot of time in the backcountry, and let's see what else. And most recently, we've been developing these online courses to teach this stuff in a video-based, entertaining, educational way that has been really fun. This last 4 years we've been doing that. And okay, so let's, those are the intros. It looks like the range is wide with experience level. And
sounds like there's an audio problem. You're having trouble hearing us.
Uh-oh.
I wonder if that's anything we can do to help assist. Maybe we could just yell louder. I don't know.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I hear everything okay. So I wonder if Sadie might be having issues on her end. So I'll try to maybe debug it with her. But it sounds like everybody else is hearing okay.
Super.
So let's, let's just start with that first question about the skins getting to, well, actually, okay. First of all, I want to say that we're not going to talk about what the probe does, what the shovel does, what the ski does, and more along the lines of like, assume that you know shovel, beacon, probe, skins, skis, boots, and really just kind of like talk about based on my experience, this is what I like, or this is what I steer clear of. And so you can get maybe a little more refined pro tips from us. And I think that would be maybe time better spent.
Yeah.
Okay?
And if backcountry skiing is new to you, or the avalanche education is new to you, we're just going to throw our website where you can get more information in the chat box. And so that way you can, go at your own pace and get more info if you're interested.
And and actually we have a code for a discount for everyone attending that we'll get here soon. Okay, so first things first, Avalanche Beacon. The main thing is that your beacon needs to have 3 antennas. If it doesn't have 3 antennas, then you need to get a different one. And that 2 antenna beacon would be like 10 or 15 years old, and it just doesn't work as well. And then the other main thing is that the batteries, this is what some people can screw up, the batteries are not rechargeable. Okay, you need to just have one-time use alkaline batteries. That alkaline batteries work in all beacons, and once you put them in, you leave them in. You don't want to like get one battery from one thing and another battery from another and switch them up, because it will mess up the percentage reading. And then we like to carry our beacon in our hip pocket with a zipper. And then the other way to do it is like more in the harness that all beacons come with, clipped around you. Is there anything else about beacons?
Well, there's a lot about beacons, but just the intros, I think, yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And then the other, I guess maybe one more thing on beacons is you need to know how to use yours, obviously, and then how to use your partners. So if you show up and your partner has a different beacon, maybe familiarize yourself with how to go from send to search with theirs and just the nuances of it, just in case you would need to use their beacon to search for somebody or whatever. So the familiarity is pretty key with beacons. And this one is Mammut Baravox S is my favorite beacon.
So there's really 3 non-negotiables when going to the backcountry, and that would be a beacon, a shovel, and a probe. And I guess on top of that is the expertise on how to use them. So how, play with them, talk to stores, take an avalanche course, go out with friends who are more experienced. When it comes to a shovel, you want to make sure that you have a metal blade. It's kind of trendy, especially in some of the on-piste resorts to have, or with ski mountaineering racing, to have plastic shovels. They're really useless, other than to check a box you have one in your backpack, which is not appropriate. So having a metal blade shovel that has an extendable handle, ideal.
Oh, I want to add one more thing. So I just got a question from one of the people taking my avalanche course, and he was, he had heard that avalanche debris can be really hard and you need to be able to hack into it. And so he thought that if he would just sharpen the edge of his shovel blade, then he could chop through that avalanche debris even better. And the reality is that in an avalanche, the debris isn't going to be rock hard, because you're going to get there to save your partner within 2 to 5, 15 minutes. And in that time, in that first 15 minutes or so, the debris doesn't set up like it does in a lot of avalanche courses when you go into the side berm and you're like hacking on the ice to show, the instructor's like showing you how hard it is to dig avalanche debris. That is not accurate. It's going to be softer than that. So you don't need to sharpen these already sharp edges, because then you could injure the victim as you're unburying them. You could cut them with a razor sharp edge. I thought that was a kind of a cool question.
Totally. And then when they're looking to buy a probe or get a probe, what's the length that is ideal?
Long enough. I would say it depends maybe a little bit on your snowpack, what the majority of people are going to be carrying.
What's the standard?
let's call it 3 meters, 300 centimeters. This one's 240 centimeters. And if I were to get this out, then, and my beacon said that the person was buried 3 meters down, I would actually need to dig down further before I started probing, because that person is long, they're deeper than my probe is long. And so that could happen with any probe. The probes will go up to 3.2 meters, and they'll be either carbon fiber or metal. And carbon fiber is lighter, but more expensive, and metal is heavier, but a little bit cheaper. And they're both about the same strength. There's not one that's inferior function-wise to the other.
You want to speak really quickly about the holes in the shovel?
Oh,
We
yeah.
just have a question here from Toby about that.
What's the deal with that, if any? Yeah, so the holes in the shovel, in this particular shovel, these holes are probably for weight savings. And then these holes, some people will like put a string through these and then just have the string as backpack straps, and they'll just carry a shovel. I've never done that. You could also, in theory, in more of a mountaineering sense, put strings through this and use it as a snow anchor. But a shovel with no holes, I've never bought a shovel thinking, what's the hole pattern on that?
To speak to that, though, we did have a really neat interaction with a veteran who had just bought a great, I don't know, let's see, when was this, 67, so maybe 50 years ago. And he just bought a shovel from True Value or True Hardware Store. And he did actually drill holes in the shovel to make it lighter. And it just looked like Swiss cheese. And so, I mean, technology has changed quite a bit.
Yeah, that was a steel shovel versus aluminum.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
rolling back into gear, like avalanches are a reality in the backcountry, but you can also choose terrain where you don't get in avalanche danger or conditions. For example, I think Mark and I both have skied tens of thousands of days in the backcountry, and personally I've interacted with 3 different like avalanches that were close calls, no injuries, no deaths, in my entire experience of being in the backcountry, which is probably more than 100 each year, 100 days per year. So they're not super common if you move through the mountains correctly. But we just wanted to mention some of the gear that you want to have to make sure that if something does happen, you have it and you know how to use it. Should we roll into, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. I mean, any safety gear is a seatbelt. Like in a car, you don't want to use a seatbelt, but you always put it on. And so just, having it is just standard operating procedure. Okay, so next let's go into skis and skins. And behind me here.
And please, any questions that come up, I'll kind of be moderating the chat. So just keep them rolling.
Okay, so lots of different options, lots of different shapes and sizes out there, but I'll give you a starting point. There is a difference between a backcountry binding and an alpine binding or a resort binding. A lot of people that are coming from the resort to the backcountry, they pick up their resort skis and are like, I would never want to hike this uphill. And you never do hike a ski that heavy uphill. You get a lighter ski that's, it's made for backcountry and it's designed to be lighter. So the main thing is most skis have some underfoot measurement, and that's right here. It's the width, and it's measured in millimeters. So about a hand width is, I don't know, 80 or so millimeters.
Depending on your hand size.
Yeah. And these are 78 millimeters underfoot. And it's a really light ski mountaineering big missions in the springtime ski with a really, really minimalist binding. And versus a big powder ski that has also a pin binding or a tech binding, but you can see that this binding is way beefier than this binding. This one is designed to be safe for the resort and for the backcountry, and this one's purely a stripped down backcountry only binding.
And there's pros and cons. Like this binding is probably one of the lightest backcountry bindings you can get on the market. As you can see, it's not adjustable. It also does not have brakes. This, if you're not, an experienced backcountry user, not having brakes could be very scary because you could lose your ski down a slope and then you're in a very bad situation. But on the other hand, this one does have brakes. It's beefier. You can use it both. But again, it is very, very heavy. So if you go with a friend on this ski, and you're on this ski, you're going to be talking and having a great time. They're going to be breathing hard and sweating. So there's a lot of different weight issues that come with being in the backcountry. One of the questions here, I don't remember, let's see who did it come from, Amanda, about telemark skiing. Telemark skiing bindings have come a long way as well. If you feel more comfortable with a Nordic background and freeing the heel, it's an awesome way to go. If you are not that comfortable with telemark skiing or skiing with a free heel, definitely go with an AT binding. AT in general, if you go with the stripped down model, will be lighter than a telemark binding setup.
To answer the question, these are 120 underfoot. So these are the biggest skis that I have, and they're resort skis. I also have a set of these with the lightweight binding on it. But I think this particular binding is great for like the one ski for it all. Like if you want to ski in a resort and you want to go in the backcountry, this is one setup that can do it all. It is heavier, obviously, than this binding, but it's also versatile. And so, that was my big question is like, I don't want to buy two boots. I don't want to buy two skis. I just want one thing, to do it all. And this is currently the best answer to that question. And it's great. So you can, flip it down and it exposes the pins. So all of these backcountry skis require a boot that fits with the pins, both in the toe and actually this one doesn't need the heel, but you can see the pins in this heel binding. And so the boot is what's doing the holding for you. So this is a ski trab, ski STRAB. I can put it in the comments. And then this one is the atomic shift binding. And then when you want to go down, you just click it like that. It's pretty simple.
And we ask your questions about the telemark bindings between titanium and cable. I haven't telemark skied for a decade, and so I'm not super familiar with where they've gone with the equipment there. So sorry, I can't help you on that question.
So yeah, to answer that question, it's Ski Trab Gara Titan, and it's I think they're each about $450, give or take. So yeah, but this binding is really great. And I don't work. I work for Atomic. I don't work for Ski Trab, but I really love this binding. So I'm gonna camp here for just a bit. What's so cool about this binding and the other iterations like it is that if you look at the toe piece, there's no spring in the middle here, okay? And because there's no spring, ice can't bind up or get under the spring and cause your connection when you clip in to be compromised. That's huge. The other big difference and why this binding, and especially this toe piece, is so awesome is the way that this is designed, it's just always closed. So you push down, put your toe in and let it go. And then when you're touring uphill, you put it in lock mode. When you ski down, you put it in ski mode. And that just allows these towers to move a bit. And with any other binding that has a tech binding that has a spring here, if there's a lot of pressure on one side or the other side also will pop. Whereas this one, when there's pressure on the one pin, my fingers are the pins, if there's pressure on this side, the other one will turn as well about 10 degrees. And what that does is it prevents you from popping out when you don't want to pop out. And so with any other binding, if you put pressure on this one will just release, and then you'll pop out of the ski. And I've seen skis with brakes scream down mountains because they didn't, engage. And so losing a ski is a pretty big deal. So that's why I really like that binding.
There's a question there about a snowboarder getting into split boarding. With all of these pieces of equipment we're showing you, they're all tools, and they're tools to get you around in the mountains. And a split board is an excellent tool to get you around certain mountain ranges. The ranges that it probably wouldn't be the best tool for is ones that have a lot of flats, where it's a steep mountain, is flat and steep and flat. And then also just something to consider when getting a split board is your feet are fully attached to that board. And so if by chance you do get caught in an avalanche, that board's going to stay on your feet, and it is going to act as an anchor and pull you down. Whereas skis, most of these bindings, if there's enough force, like from a fall or from impact of snow moving around you, hopefully the skis will pop off and you can swim and try to get yourself to the surface. That's just one thing to consider when deciding which tool it is. I know now there's like, I'm a skier, I'm a snowboarder, I'm a telemarker, and there's like an identity around it. And I recognize that, but they are all just tools to allow us to have fun and enjoy the backcountry.
Yeah, and there's pros and cons. I mean, I'm super jealous of my splitboarding friends when, they're throwing up this rooster tail that's, huge. And then they're really jealous of me when it's rolling terrain and they're in split ski mode, and, their heel isn't locked, and they're all over the place.
But on the note, some of the, ski mountaineers that we know that do snowboard or splitboard, they also take their split boards to the resort, and they actually practice split skiing, just so if they're forced to do that on the exit or any sort of time that they're in the backcountry, they're actually pretty proficient at split skiing. So that's also very helpful.
Okay, so this is a great question from Jennifer James. Why are the lighter weight bindings non-alpine not good for the ski resort? Okay, so why do we not want to ski a pin or a tech, these are interchangeable terms, binding in the resort? It's because it's not certified, it doesn't have a certified DIN to release your foot if your ski goes one way and your body goes the other way. Any type of tech binding is going to be more dangerous for your knee tendons, okay? It is. DIN certified bindings is a German certification that bindings need to get in order to release at a certain, twisting. I don't really know the science behind it, but it's a certification, and these don't qualify, or like this minimal doesn't qualify. The bindings that do get close to qualifying, like this shift binding, it gets a lot closer to protecting your knees, but it's also like 6 or 7 times the weight. I mean, this is a heavy, heavy ski compared to the other one. And so why that is okay, and why this binding is okay for a lot of people out there to ski, is because in the backcountry, you're not ripping down groomers, and you don't have as hard packed snow to like catch your edge and pull you in a direction. You're skiing powder or softer snow, and so that twisting fall isn't as likely.
Yeah. Yeah. And the ski tribe, the tech bindings, they will release, just not at the same ease or adjustability as.
It's not at the same measurable quantities as a true alpine binding. It does release if it's really twisted, but it's not, that range is not as measurable as the DIN certification wants to have. And so tech bindings will have a release value, which is like their answer to DIN certification. This is so nerdy.
It looks like our buddy Wade did a Ski Magazine article here about DIN. So you can
all right, thanks there. Wade.
Our tech binding's less durable.
No, they are just as durable.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
We've been using them the last decade and have really haven't had any problems.
Yeah, every binding will break eventually, especially if you're like throwing it in your roof box or you're slamming it with your ski pole to get the ice off or something like that, or storing it wet. Yeah, it is like any piece of gear, you want to take care of it. No, they're super strong. The other big thing about these tech bindings as you get lighter is that you want to have a good ski technician put them on your skis, because a backcountry ski is lighter weight. And what that means on a very basic level is that an alpine ski will have a metal sheet in the top of it, and the screws hold easier and better in that metal. So you could have any tech put your binding on and probably be kind of okay. Whereas you need to be very specific about having a good tech put on those bindings, because it needs to line up like bang on in order to work as it's designed to work. So don't just fake it with mounting. And I actually use epoxy as well, as opposed to wood glue.
Are there any more specific ski questions that anybody has, or we'll move on? Or do you have something else?
Yeah, just the last one.
Mark has another question.
If I was just going to get one pair of backcountry skis, the first one I would get, the only one I would get, is this setup right here. It's a 107 underfoot ski. It's the Atomic Backland 107, and then this ski trob binding with an adjustable heel plate. And the adjustable heel plate allows you to use different boots, because every boot's going to be a little bit different. And so like year 1, you'll get a pair of boots. Year 3, you'll get a different pair of boots, and then you can just adjust that. Or if your friend wants to use this ski, so that's my recommendation for. And I use this ski like a lot.
You asked about 2 pairs of skis. I think it really depends on your snowpack and where you live.
I would say 2 pairs. Yeah, what would you say?
I would go with my 106 is my go-to, and then I would go bigger from like 111 to 120 for powder. Because if you're backcountry skiing, you're kind of seeking out the powder. You're seeking out the fun and the flotation. You're not
fresh turns.
Totally. But if you live somewhere where the snowpack is a little different, like on the East Coast, or maybe
or if you're in Europe.
Or if you're in Europe, then I'd go for something like an 85 underfoot.
Yeah.
And then something in the hundreds.
Yeah, so I'd go like, if I lived in Europe, I'd have the 107 and I'd have the 78. And the 78 is more for like springtime missions, where I just want to go as fast as I can, because you put those 78s on your feet and it's actually easier than walking or running.
Yeah, so if I lived in the Pacific Northwest and I had the opportunity to ski volcanoes often or go up Mount Baker, I would jump on something between the 75 and 85 range.
Yeah, like perfect California, spring corn. That 78 ski is just awesome. Well, any ski is awesome in that,
but when it comes to spring and corn, and a lot of times where a lot more people are backcountry skiing because the avalanche conditions are more predictable, a smaller ski is really all you need. So, all right, we got a question about the 2 different styles of backpacks.
Okay.
Regular good old backpack and a airbag.
Full disclosure, we've been Arc'teryx athletes for 5 or 6, 7 years, I don't know. And we, part of the contract is free gear. And so, but also so there's a bias, obviously, but also part of that bias is that we get to beat this stuff up and use it to death. And
we test it and we try new products and we try to figure out what is the best style, design, use for all of us.
Yeah. So we have a non-airbag pack. This is a 32 liters. This is kind of the daily driver for us. And it can fit pretty much everything you need for a non-technical backcountry day. Like you don't have a harness, you don't have a rope. You just have non-technical stuff: food, water, extra clothes, camera, goggles, etc. And shovel beacon probe. So the main thing of a ski backpack, if you go into REI, is that a ski backpack is going to have a dedicated pocket for the probe, the shovel, and maybe a snow saw if you wanted to. And that's going to be separate from the main compartment with all the rest of the stuff. Side note, when you put your probe in your backpack, you should get rid of the sleeve. You don't need that sheath to put in. Just you want to be able to pull this out of your pack and deploy it quickly without messing with the sheath or the little cinchy thing.
And the reason they're separate again, is just so if you do have to use it, you're not pulling out gloves and extra layers and searching for these items. They're quick, they're easy, and they're right there ready for you to use.
Yeah. And then the other nice feature on a lot of ski packs is a side zipper. So when you are going to take, when you're going to take a break, this is going to be warm and hot, and if you put that in the snow, it's just going to be a melted wet ice ball. So you want to put it on its back or on its side and keep this in the air, and then access all your junk, and then zip it up, and away you go. And then the final thing that ski packs are going to have, a good ski pack is going to have, is some type of ski carry. And some people like to do it A-frame, so one board on one side and one board on the other. We prefer to do a cross carry where you sandwich the boards together, and then you put it sideways up and down with the bindings above the lower ski tie. And then these ski ties are pretty handy for other things as well. This pack is pretty versatile, so you can just remove that and have that for, I don't know, if your boot breaks or something. You can
boot breaks, skin failure, those were great to strap around your skin and your skis so you continue on. A boot binding, not a binding. Actually, I have when a back heel piece binding broke, we used it to attach the person's foot to the ski. So there's tons of uses for ski straps. So if you have that option, it's always worth it.
Okay, so that's your standard pack, and I think that one's a couple $100 or something, whereas your airbag packs are in like the $1,500 range. So it's a huge jump up in price and also a huge jump up in weight. This is just over 7 pounds, where that one's, I don't know, like over 1 pound, something like that. Now, the main difference, the two families of backpacks, of Avalanche packs, is battery operated packs and air canister packs. And this is a battery operated pack. The batteries, and this, I think it's sweet because you can practice with it and you can pull the cord without feeling bad about it. So you just turn it on, it goes through its checks. You can fly with it better in your carry-on. Whereas a canister one, you'd have to empty and then refill when you get to wherever you were. And sometimes the threads don't match up. If you have a canister one, the places to look for to fill up or to refill is like paintball shops, or fire stations sometimes have refill. And what's the other one? I'm spacing it. Scuba shops.
And some gear shops for sure too.
Yeah. But call around, to wherever you're traveling to get a hold of it. So do these work? Yeah, they do. Do they save 100% of the people that wear them? No, they don't. This is not like, a superpower. It's just a little bit safer thing. And the idea is it makes you the biggest chunk, and biggest chunks in motion will rise to the surface. And so this has got a really big, bubble in it. It's really loud, so I'm not going to deploy it because it'll wake up our daughter. But they're getting lighter and lighter and better and better. So the other thing, if I'm choosing to use this or not, because some days I'll use it, some days I won't. The days that I'm not going to use it is if I'm over, if my biggest exposure is like over a cliff, or where I get caught in that avalanche and then I get swept over a cliff, that airbag's not going to help me. And I'm just in an area where airbags, it's not going to add to the security. So I'm not going to pay the weight penalty to carry it around. Or, I don't know.
Low angle,
yeah,
really low consequence, or not consequence, but low probability of avalanche terrain.
Yeah, I often take it the most to answer Rebecca here. The biggest condition that I take it in, or where I use it, is when I'm guiding. So if I'm out with somebody that I don't fully trust, that's going to hedge my bets a little bit. So that's kind of a you know, I don't, it's not 100% of the time, but most of the time if I'm guiding, I'll bring that with me. And then, you know, honestly, if you're getting into it, there's a lot of fear around backcountry skiing. And so if you have the ability to own, you know, like if you have the financial resources to own an airbag pack, it's a really good idea to have one. But don't consider that your silver bullet. You know, that is still a safety, you know, it's an airbag in a car. Like, I'm glad my car has airbags. I don't want to use those either, but am I going to, you know, yeah. So
Do you know what the most common trauma injuries are in avalanches?
suffocation. Is that trauma?
I think that's death.
I don't know. As far as non-suffocate, neck, yeah, that's grim.
That's
But what I do know is, of the fatalities, I think it's in North America, 25% of them are from trauma. You know, so all avalanche fatalities, 25% are trauma, and then 75% are suffocation. And within that 75% that die from suffocation, most of them died, I think, after 15 minutes being buried. Okay, so if you can get to your partner buried in an avalanche in under 15 minutes using your beacon and your probe and your shovel, statistically that's really good. So the point is, you need to be really good with this equipment to be able to use it, you know, fast and super efficient.
And wait, to answer your question about the Reco, from what I know, a lot more resorts here in America are getting it. And so if you're on resort and you get lost, or you get stuck in a tree well, or from what I know, which is limited, it's more of like body recovery or trying to relocate lost people. It's not necessarily the best tool for the backcountry here in the US, but I know in Europe, they have incredible resources when it comes to Reco. They have them on helicopters and they can drag them across surfaces. And
I think they have them here.
do you have that as well?
Yeah, but
I guess it depends on where you live.
Reco is more of it's a body recovery thing more than it is, just like Janelle's saying. So another question, an avalanche beacon, okay, and maybe what we're getting here is, and I appreciate that, Wade. So a lot of people call these transceivers. We're using the word beacon, and a beacon, this does not send out an SOS message, okay? This is not a, you know, it's not linked to the satellites or anything. Whereas Garmin InReach Mini is, and I can type that in, and that's what I carry to reach satellites. If I'm out of cell service, then I'll use that GPS satellite messaging device in order to communicate with cavalry, like a spot device would be.
But you can communicate via your phone, and so it's a lot easier. And then also with the Garmin InReach Mini, you can actually track, and the track will go to a computer. And so if you have loved ones at home that are curious where you are and what you're doing, then they can log on to the computer and see where you're going. But with that, there's also, you know, there's still errors in the way the satellites work. So sometimes they could be stationary for a long period of time when they're actually moving. So it is sort of it's a great resource, but don't be like, oh, they haven't moved in 2 hours, there's something wrong. It just may not be picking up the satellite to give you more data.
Yeah, so if you wanted to be like super what is the word? With no confusion, you would call this an avalanche transceiver. And then that implies that it does not communicate with satellites, where some beacons on the market do. But not avalanche beacons. Am I muddying the water? Okay.
A little bit.
Yeah. All right. So do you think it would be helpful for the medical community to investigate? I'm talking about doing research in it. Do you understand that?
I'm not sure. Might have been on another topic we were talking about or
Okay.
something earlier.
Allison, if you want to ask, okay.
Trauma injuries. Yeah, I think there would be, yeah, that'd be a great doctorate or research project for sure.
Yeah, but I don't know how that would, like the trauma. I don't think you could, as a backcountry skier, I don't think you could hedge for it. Like if you knew the number of people that died from a neck injury versus being impaled by a stick or something, that I don't know if that would, change things too much.
I think when it comes to that, it's just really knowing, as far as injuries go, I mean, accidents happen, absolutely, but just knowing your own abilities, knowing your ability on resort, and then recognizing that that changes when you're in the backcountry because you don't have access to ski patrol, or just search and rescue usually takes a while. So being able to stay within your ability and comfort range and not getting yourself in something that is over your head, because self-rescue is a reality when you are in the backcountry. So keeping it mellow, keeping it mild, try not to learn how to ski in the backcountry, instead using chairlifts is probably, my experience, probably one of the most helpful things when it comes to backcountry skiing. And then obviously staying within your fitness level, like not totally destroying yourself on the uphill, and then when you're descending you're so fatigued that every turn you end up falling. Just doing basic things of that nature to keep you from getting injured.
Cool. All right, so let's move on with the gear. Skins. There's three main categories of skins, and that it's or like as far as the substance that they're made out of, and there's nylon and mohair. And what mohair is, it's actually sheep's wool. This is 100% mohair, so it's a wool, and you glide one way and it grips the other way. And these mohair skins are generally faster. They have more glide and a little bit less grip. And a pure nylon skin would be, they're going to have more grip and a little bit less glide, and they're also bulkier and heavier, and they take up more room in your pack.
But on like steep, icy skin tracks, they're a dream because you're not slipping back. And so if you're just getting into the backcountry, I would highly recommend synthetic, because it'll just make you less frustrated, because slipping back is one of those things that's very frustrating. Where the mohair, as you get better technique with your skinning and movement, then yeah, you just end up going faster and it's more efficient.
And synthetic and nylon are synonymous terms. So the other thing I wanted to say with this is the most standard synthetic or pure nylon skin is the Black Diamond Ascent skin, I think, at least in the States. And the glue on Black Diamond skins is ridiculously sticky, too sticky, especially if it's cold. You're going to be trying to pull this apart, and I've actually hurt my shoulder like pulling it apart one time. And so a little trick here is you would, all right, so here's the tip, and you're going to put your foot on the ground in the parking lot on this side, and you're just going to do like a pull up, like that, with your foot here, and you're just going to pull up, and that's a pretty good, it works pretty darn well. These are atomic, what are they called? Multi-fit, pure mohair skins. And this glue is the best glue that I've found. It's not super sticky. You can see, this is room temperature, but it's easy to pull apart, and it's easy to, and it stays sticky, pretty much all day. Other thing is tail clips are really important. You need to have tail clips. You'll see maybe some randonnée racers that get rid of their tail clips so that they can do transitions faster. And that's fine for them because they also have 2 pairs or even 3 pairs of skins in their backpack.
Here's a great tip too. Sometimes, you'll accidentally drop your skin in the snow, or just over time, snow will build up on it. You have a couple different options. One is I like to put the skin underneath the back of my thigh and just rub it really fast. And so that helps heat it up and get all the snow off. Or you can do it on your ski, turn your ski around and then rub it across the edges to help get rid of any of the moisture or the snow, and to help it adhere better to your ski if you're doing a second lap or third lap and it just gets snowy.
Was that Tina's question?
No, I just answered. I just made it up.
Yeah. So you got to get
skin savers.
Okay.
What do you think with skin savers?
Yeah. So what skin savers are is when you buy the skins, they come with a piece of plastic that separates the glue from itself, and it's just, and you pull that off. And some people have that with them, and some people get rid of it. We get rid of it until we put them away for the summer. And then when you put them away from the summer, put that skin saver, or it should be called a glue saver, back on the glue part, and then roll the whole thing up and put it in its little sleeve. And that's a great way to preserve the glue over the summertime. But I do not, under any circumstances, have that stupid thing out there with me blowing in the wind on a ridge trying to do this. Just do glue to glue. This is exactly how I just pulled them out of my pack, and I used these yesterday. And then that's how I would just shove them in my pack. Okay. Some people would want to carry them in their chest and zip it up to keep them warm. Well, that trick that Janelle just showed or just talked about, where you seesaw them back on the edges of the ski and then seesaw back on the back of your leg, that creates way more warmth from friction than just putting it in your chest. And then, this just makes, I don't know, the photos look bad.
And it doesn't warm it up enough. And what it does is it gets your base layer wet and your other layers wet, and it probably cools you down more than it actually helps the skin warm up.
Yeah, no bueno. Have you backcountry skied with your baby?
We have in non-avalanche terrain.
Yeah. Yeah.
People have different risk levels, and ours is we're not going to take our baby in avalanche terrain.
Yeah, no way.
But there is plenty of mellow touring around the Tetons or Colorado where we live, and visit grandma and grandpa. And yeah, you get outside, kids love it. They get to look at the trees. I guess I would just recommend making sure you have sunscreen on the child, and then some sort of windshield. Jobo actually makes an incredible little shield that goes over their face just to protect them from the elements, especially when they're really little.
But that actually does bring up a good point. I was talking to a lady that, so we're in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and I was talking to a friend here that's lived here for 20 years, and backcountry skiing came up, and she didn't know that there are areas that you can go outside of the ski resort in the backcountry that are not ever, ever, ever going to avalanche. It's called non-avalanche terrain. And there is so much fun to be had skiing powder in non-avalanche terrain. And I'm going to oversimplify here. It's a little bit more nuanced than this. But if you're skiing on a slope that is 30 degrees or less in steepness, the odds of that avalanching is almost zero. And it's super fun, in light powder. It can be really, really, really fun. And so avalanche terrain, non-avalanche terrain, both of these things exist outside of the ski resort.
And there are some great resources too, I believe, when it comes to shading of the
oh yeah, we should talk about tech like technology.
Yeah, because there's a question here. But when our baby was young, I had her in a baby Bjorn, and we just wear her on her chest facing in. It protects her head, it protects her body. Then when she got a little older, she faced out, and I skied with her then. And then once she got a little bit bigger, someone gave us an off-spray pack, and she would hang out on the back. But again, if you're going to take kids out, obviously know your abilities, know where you're going, know how long you're going to be out. We would put our daughter in a onesie, and then we put like hand warmers in her feet, because that was the best way to that we could come up with to keep her warm. And, you know, we just kind of keep an eye on her, and it worked well. Another thing that Arc'teryx did for me when I was first pregnant, and obviously got another one in there now, is they actually made a belly extender. And you can, if you're quite the sewer, you can do this as well, or get someone else to. But it basically makes your jacket a little bit larger to account for your belly. And then when the baby was on the outside, I'd put the baby inside this jacket. Sometimes Mark would do it, just depending on where we're going. And
yeah. So this is the thing. It just has 2 zippers, or I mean, I guess it's 1 zipper, and yeah, it can actually just zip to itself. So it's like this sleeve, and our friend at Arc'teryx just whipped it up real quick. How cool is that? And then it's filled with some insulation, and the baby would just sleep. The first time we took her up Snow King, which is the resort by here where you can go uphill, she was 3 weeks old. And I don't know, it's kind of nuts, but it was super fun.
And I didn't do it. I was still recovering. He carried her because he was still strong and fit. And
Wade, we have skied Cody Peak. It's pretty sweet in the right snow conditions.
I totally agree. Arc'teryx should definitely sell these. I've been telling them that since they made it for me a couple years ago. I'll nudge them a little bit harder because I think it would be great for all of us women who want to stay active and grow babies.
So yeah, Logan's asking the one thing you'd like to take with you that makes your BC adventure besides the safety items. I would say it's my phone, honestly, or my camera, which is kind of the same thing, but like my nice camera or my phone. Which is kind of a segue into the tech part of it. I'll put some apps that you definitely need to have, and this is also going to plug another. I guess SheJumps is doing a Gaia GPS app webinar like this next week or something, and you guys, you all should like totally get on that because it's Gaia GPS is the bomb, and so essentially what it is it allows you to navigate anywhere in the world with offline maps, and that's satellite maps, topo maps. You can do shade, what's it called? Shade, slope angle shading maps.
And Jessica, to answer your question with like, where do you find non-avalanche terrain? This app, the Gaia app, there's a button on there that does shading. And the shading, it correlates to like below 20 degrees, 20, 25, 30, I'm not sure exactly what the
30s probably. Yeah.
No, like how they shade it in different
colors.
It's
in 5-degree increments.
Okay.
Yeah. So you can just like hit, in your area, and you hit the button and it'll be like, white is under 30 degrees, yellow is 20 or 30 to 35, blah, blah, blah. Joanne's asking if Gaia is a lot better than CalTopo app. I haven't used CalTopo app because it's pretty new. I've been using Gaia GPS for 5 or 6 or 7 years now. And
I like CalTopo too. I've used both. I think they're both great resources, and I think you don't necessarily need both. So just get to know one really, really well, whichever one you prefer.
And then there's another one called FatMap. And all of them have a free option if you don't want to download. If you don't want to have the maps offline, like if you're working at home and just playing around with it, you can try them out for free. And then if you want them offline so you can still access the important data in the field with no cell service, then you need to have a subscription, which is generally around like $40 or $50 per year. And in my opinion, these apps, they could probably charge $300 a year, and I'd still buy it. Let's see, the Gaia button for layering is, they just added it a couple weeks ago, so you might need to update your app, but it's you go to map sources and then here it is. Let's see. focus. It's the shade angle, right? No, slope angle. Anyway, yeah. So having that, so we use Guide GPS or any whatever your flavor is. I'll just keep saying Guide GPS because that's what I use. And the main thing is if you're skiing in the trees, let's say, and I do this regularly, and it's like I need to be in this point over here, and there's a bunch of trees between me and that point, and I'm skiing down and having super fun, and then I stop and we regroup, and it's like, do I go down and left or down and right? I don't remember, I don't know, I can't tell. I'll just start recording a track on my Gaia GPS, and as I ski down or ski up or wherever, it's going to be like pooping out a line of where I've come from. And then I can extrapolate out and know if I need to turn right or left or stay straight. And so that record function is like dropping breadcrumbs where you've been. That's just key. And it's super helpful. And it's like, map and compass, and, those days are over in my opinion.
Yeah, so on a safety gear note, in addition to that, is to have a fully charged phone, maybe with an extra battery.
Yeah.
It's a safety feature when it comes to recreating the backcountry.
Yeah. And let me, what other apps do you use? I'll bring up this link.
I would say Gaia is the app I use, and then I'm always checking the forecast and the avalanche forecast before I go. But as far as being out there, that's really the only one I use. What else do you use?
I also use FatMap. FatMap is like it's essentially Google Earth for your phone, but it's expensive and it crashes a lot and it takes up a lot of space. So I just added a link to my Mountain Sense navigation course, and don't buy it right now, because it's included in the other course that if you get that, then you get both. Anyway, if you go to that sales page on that link, you'll see an affiliate link, and so I get a couple bucks. It's an affiliate link. But you get 20% off of Gaia if you wanted to subscribe. You could use that if you want. If you find a different link, that's great too. But Gaia GPS is the bomb. And then the battery, I have a battery case that just it's the Apple, iPhone case that just plugs right in. And it actually, what's kind of cool, this is nerdy, but super cold will affect your battery. Like we've probably all been in really cold situations, and then your phone's just dead, and then you plug it back in and it immediately jumps to whatever the percentage was when it got super cold. Like let's say it was at 60% or something. And with that case that charges it, it pulls the charge from the case first, and then it goes to the phone's battery. And so what's cool about that is it kind of resists that freezing tendency for phones in the winter time. I still keep my phone right against my chest or in my hip pocket, so it's staying warm. And because any electronics in the cold, you have to baby them, and you definitely don't want to drop them in the snow or whatnot. But it was a really big step when waterproof phones started coming out, because that made it a lot safer. Okay.
Well, there's another thing I would love to touch on is just the clothing and the layering. I think that's a huge component when it comes to backcountry skiing that is so different than resort skiing. When we're resort skiing, obviously we want to, put on quite a few clothes and stay warm as we're sitting on the chairlifts. When we're backcountry skiing, you get hot so quickly, and you'll find that having several different layers is key. And I would also recommend, depending of course on where you live, but if it's not precipitating, especially not raining, then Gore-Tex is a challenging material to tour in.
It's too hot.
You just get, it can't keep up in that environment with how much moisture you're producing. And when you're in the backcountry and you get sweaty, it equates to getting cold. And so you really want to reduce the amount of sweat that you produce when you're out there. So if you find yourself getting slightly warm, stop. I mean, it usually takes between like 8 and 12 minutes if you like start cold and you're in a big puffy jacket. In that time, you're like, oh, I'm actually feeling quite warm. And you continue to get warmer and warmer. So for, like what I end up skiing touring in is a soft shell pant. I also live in a drier climate, Jackson, Wyoming, where I know if you live in the Pacific Northwest, Gore-Tex is probably a little bit more of a go-to. So obviously environment makes a big difference. But having many different layers that you can shed as you get warmer, like go from a hat to a headband or a ball cap, something that can allow the moisture and the heat to go. Having several pair of gloves, a light pair of gloves that you're touring up in, and then a warmer pair of gloves that you can put on once you get to the top and the turnaround point to make sure your hands stay warm. What else would you like to add on that one?
I think buffs are pretty critical. Just having a buff to cover your ears, and then it keeps the sweat out of your eyes. I think a lot of people will, they'll just get hot and then they don't want to stop because they're trying to catch up with their more experienced friend anyways. And if you're touring in goggles on or goggles here, that's just a mistake. The goggles need to be in your backpack and the sunglasses are on for the up. And then the buff is really nice for that multi-purpose thing. And then I keep my warmer hat, for the down, or a helmet, whatever the case may be for the given objective.
And helmets really are not necessary for touring up unless you're afraid of like giant tree bombs from heavy snow falling on your head. But even
that'd be a bummer.
But even
or
still,
climbing up a couloir where there's rockfall or something. Okay, so now sun protection, or let's see. Joanne is asking, back to the phone thing. Yeah, it's a good idea to have your phone in airplane mode so it doesn't interfere with your beacon. I was just reading the Mammut, what's it called, manual on this, and they said when it's on your body and it's sending the signal, it needs to be 20 centimeters away from any devices anything that has a battery is going to interfere. Okay, a GoPro, a radio, any electronic at all.
even electric gloves or electric socks.
Yeah, anything like the heated gloves thing that's the main culprit, because the beacon is literally touching the glove that can interfere whether it's on or off. So heated gloves as a backcountry skier, not a great idea. Bad idea, actually. But other metal things, like even a pacemaker, or if you have it, your shovel blade near it or something, that's going to affect and just throw off the numbers that are being read. So wherever it's stored, it needs to be 20 centimeters away. And then when you're searching with it, it needs to be 50 centimeters away. And so normally that is achieved by just having it at an arm's length. So if I'm searching, I could have my phone in my pant pocket and my beacon out in front of me, and that's probably about 50 centimeters. And that's going to not interfere then. Okay, so any electronics, if they're close, it's no bueno. If they're further away, it's better. So maybe one thing is, like, some people will have the BCA radio on their hips, maybe, or on their shoulder strap. Maybe have your Avalanche Beacon here or in your pocket then, that has a zipper that has nothing else in it if you put it in your pocket. And yeah, so that's a little bit on the interference thing. Okay, let's see, it's 9:08, so we have
A few more minutes.
7 more minutes. And so, yeah, pepper us with some last minute questions here. In the meantime, I want to talk about sunscreen. My favorite, once I found this stuff, I just can't go back. Shakalaka 30 SPF sunscreen. You can buy it by the 4-pack. It's the best.
He's not sponsored by either one of these companies.
But I wish I was. And then this one is just awesome. Get the gunk off of it.
It is a woman's
Well, no, it's, either.
color screen, but Mark wants to like
The-
make it a little more masculine, call
Yeah.
it a man screen.
This is gonna be called Man Screen, and it is a SPF 50 mineral, so it's not chemical, it's mineral sunscreen, and it works. And you just brush it on a whole bunch. See the powder? That was maybe a little much. And it's light, it's fast, and it's just awesome.
It also works great when you're going out to a club later in the evening to keep your face from turning red if you've had a few too many cocktails.
Yeah, no, but the other great thing about it is for rock climbing, you don't get your hands all gooey, putting sunscreen on, and that's awesome, because who wants to use their water bottle to wash the sunscreen off before they go climbing?
Touring boots, how long they last really depends on how much you use them. But the first thing usually that goes is the liners. The liners get packed out and then they start getting looser. So a great way to make your boot last longer is to buy an Intuition liner or any other type of liner once you pack out the stock liner, or just start with Intuition liners. They're also warmer. And then as far as like the outside of the boot, I mean, they're pretty durable. I don't think I've gone through the lifespan of one before I got too excited about the next new model. I might have worn out a couple boots.
So it's Color Science Sun Forgettable is the name of that sunscreen. Yeah, boots are Pandora's box. If you find a pair of boots that fit well, stick with them.
And if you have the resources, like buy an extra pair, because they keep changing styles. And sometimes I wished I would have bought a couple pairs of boots that I fall in love with. But then they make new ones, and
yeah,
feet. Find a boot that fits, and that's a can of worms.
Yeah. And let's see so we didn't get into the techie stuff at all, like crampons and ice axes and helmets and ropes and all that. But if you wanted to, the link to the discount is, let me bring it up here. So our courses have two different backcountry skiing specific courses. One is for avalanches and one is ski mountaineering and backcountry skiing. And so the avalanche one is kind of like how you can read the forecast, just inform yourself about this beast that is avalanches, and make wise decisions accordingly. And right here is a link to a 30% off code to the avalanche course, and then there's another and that will include the navigation course. And then there's another link in there if you wanted to double down and get the ski mountaineering course as well. That would be for $100 off off the other one. And so that's, it's a really, really cool resource that we worked very hard on creating over the last several years. And a lot of people have taken the course, and a lot of people like the course, and 0 people have refunded the course, but that's an option. If you don't like, if you buy it and you don't like it, you can get a full refund. And you can just really dive down the rabbit hole with all this stuff. And it's, professionally shot and edited, and a lot of different areas that we used, that we, shot on location, and real examples that keep it interesting.
For sure. Here's a question on how to keep your toes warm. I somehow was born with really hot feet, so I've never really had that issue, but you can. Yeah, I can't speak to that. You?
Well, if you want to really go for it, Lenz socks, Lenz, heated socks, they're over $300. But if it's really an issue, that might be worth it for you.
Actually, we have a pair to sell if anybody wants to buy them.
Anyway, so yeah, heated socks or having a well-fitted boot is going to help a lot as well. So getting an intuition liner and custom molding that is pretty important to have it fit. So someone is saying, oh yeah, the Lens heated socks are like, I think they're like $325. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. But if you have freezing feet and you really like skiing and this is gonna omit that concern, then yeah, then it's pretty good. But I always err on thinner sock in a well-fitted liner and with a nice footbed. But that really is, I mean, there's 100 different answers for that, and it's just a matter of like iterating and keep on trying. What's the name of the second sunscreen you showed us? Sun Forgettable. Yes, the brand is Color Science, color with an E, science. Well, I guess you're seeing that backwards, aren't you? So that doesn't really help.
It says no chat responses are coming from Mark. Is everybody experiencing
Oh, shoot.
that?
Me too. Oh, man. I've been typing so much in there.
Oh, I see.
What happened?
We just had it to panelists, not
Oh, shoot. Okay. Let me
copy and paste that
yeah.
link. It should still be in there.
All right. Bear with me here. Oh, yeah, you're right. Nice. Okay. There's the link.
Oh, that explains a lot of those questions that were popping up.
Yeah, I was typing that. Sorry, everybody. We just had it all panelists and not all panelists and attendees. And
so ski trap bindings is one that we were getting questions. Gaia, it's
yes.
Gaia. It's I think the Earth God, and that's the app. Let's see, what else were we talking about that we wanted to know?
Color Science, sunscreen. Do I still hear her baby?
Yeah, she's still crying.
What else? Oh, a Shakalaka chapstick. Oh, Shakalaka.
Well, awesome. I really appreciate you all listening, and hopefully you got some good tidbits that will get you in the backcountry and feel prepared. If anything else, if any other last minute questions here are still, feel free to
I just put my
them.
email in there if you want to shoot me an email. And then we're also Janelle.Smiley and Smiley's Project on Instagram. And yeah, thanks SheJumps for hosting this.
Sure.
And for doing the good work you do.
I hope you all get out in the backcountry and remember it's fun, and it's just supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
Be safe. Have fun.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Stop the recording.